Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome back to Demo Days. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. Today's going to be particularly exciting, as instead of us talking about how we do things at GitHub, we're going to explore application security from the perspective of one of the largest e-commerce platforms in Latin America. I'd like to welcome my co-hosts for today, Joseph and Andrea, who will be introducing our guest from Mercado Libre.
Welcome to Demo Days. I'm Joseph, and today with us is Mercado Libre, the leading e-commerce and fintech platform of Latin America, with over 132 million users. Wow! Today, we are going to learn about their approach to application security.
That's right, Joseph. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. And we are super thrilled to be joined by this power team of engineers ready to dig in. They're going to share their experience with us, how they've been utilizing CodeQL, and overall their experience with SAST application security testing. So without further ado, let's get started. Welcome, Valeria, Natalia, Lucia, Camila. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for being here with us today. Joseph, go right in.
First question is to Lucia. Can you tell us about your role at Mercado Libre?
Okay, our team, our main goal is to prevent vulnerabilities reaching production. So mainly because it's so much easier and also cheaper to fix any bug, even security ones, while coding, while developing, rather than several months later when it's already productive. Also, I think static analysis help us to find some vulnerabilities that we wouldn't be able to find so easily, maybe like doing some penetration testing or so. So this is our main goal here in Mercado Libre as the SAST team.
Awesome. Thank you, Lucia. Valeria, can you tell us a little bit about how Mercado Libre implements the SAST program, which you folks are the team. You're the SAST team.
Yeah, sure. As Lucia said, our main goal is to catch vulnerabilities before they get to production. So the first place where we want to be is scanning pull requests, right? So we scan pull requests looking for Mercado Libre's most common vulnerabilities. And when we find some, we block the pull request. That is, you can't merge until you fix it. And blocking pull request is a big deal. With great power comes great responsibilities. And static analysis comes with false positives. That's how it is. So developers can report these false positives, and this will stop blocking the pull request. And then later we'll review these reports and use the feedback to improve our queries. That's our main goal. That's the first thing we implemented. But then we said we can't stop here. So from a security perspective, you don't want to know only the new vulnerabilities. You want to know all of them. So we started scanning the whole code base, looking for legacy vulnerabilities. And on the other hand, developers started asking us for a way to run this scan on their own computers before pushing a change to the repository. So we developed also a command line tool that they could run in their local environment. It would output the results in a serif format so they can see them in Visual Studio. And I think that's a good sum up of what we do in SAST.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And also thank you for showing love to the legacy code bases. That's something that not all teams take care of. And, it's so important to get over that technical debt, especially when it comes to security. So Natalia, question for you. Because, of course, maybe you used another tool in the past. I'd love to know if you or your team have used any other SAST tools before.
Yeah, sure. Actually, we complement CodeQL with other tools. One of them running nowadays is based on regular expressions and dynamic validators to search for hard-coded credentials in the code. We also are using SEMRE as an alternative. We doesn't need to build the code base because we have some C++ applications that need an environment that is hard to replicate. So it was easier for us to put them in a GitHub action. And something else we want to tell you is that in 2018 we built our own SAST tool, and that tool analyzed only Groovy and Go applications. And one day someone said, well, we shouldn't use Groovy anymore, try to migrate all that applications, and so we need something to escalate and continue doing SAST analysis. So we start using CodeQL.
The next question is for Lucia. We at GitHub have CodeQL. We would like to say that it is our industry-leading semantic code analysis engine. How did you hear about CodeQL?
Okay, the first time we heard about CodeQL was back in 2019, I think. We learned about Microsoft Experience, and we thought, yeah, that's exactly what we need. But later, in 2020, last year, when Semli joined GitHub, we here in Mercado Libre, we got GitHub Enterprise. So that's when our journey with QL started.
Yeah, such a great partnership there. We love that team that Howard's went through. So, all right. Well, wondering about, the beginning, learning new things. Natalia, Camila, I'd love if you could share a little bit about how you personally got started writing queries. Was it difficult? Just a little bit of sort of your journey ramping up. It'd be great if we could share with our audience.
Yes, it was a lot of trial and error. Some steps were easier than other, but we just first we searched the CodeQL repository for examples because we didn't know about the language, and there are lots of queries in all the language supported, so it was help for us. Then we had training sessions with the GitHub team to solve specific problems we were having with some things. And when we were ready, we wrote our own documentation and our workshops for our mates. So Camila took one of those workshops.
Yes. In my case, I participated in the internal CodeQL training that the GIR did, where they took the GitHub training as a basis. The documentation that they were putting together was very, very useful for me, where I had step-by-step on how to fail learning in order to get to the point of making my own query and improving the existing queries. It was very helpful to do a research on the queries that they already had implemented. There was also a lot of trial and error, yes.
This is so impressive. I mean, I love how this evolved from the start to what is now. And question to Camila is, how many members of your team are writing CodeQL at the moment?
Yes, the four of you, or the QL developers main team, were the ones who write to queries to scan and block pull requests. We need to achieve a high quality standard. We also taught QL to the rest of the application security team. Some of them write quick queries to assist them in pen test.
Thank you so much for sharing this. And Valeria, how are you using CodeQL?
Okay, as Camila said, our main goal is usually to find vulnerabilities. So when we want to write a new query, the first thing we do is to decide like a generic pattern that describes this vulnerability. And then we start searching on the Mercado Libre's code to find the many variants this vulnerability could appear, because developers can get really creative. So yeah, we need to know all these different ways of doing the same thing. And then, of course, we also need to know how to fix this vulnerability, and again, the many ways of fixing it. So once we had all these examples, we start writing the actual query, and we try to support at least most of the bad cases and the good cases, right? The good thing about this process is that once you're done, you're aware of most of the false positives and false negatives you can get, right? Because you first had the examples. The other use for CodeQL here at Mercado Libre is usually related to pen testing for code exploration in the recon stage. CodeQL is very useful to list all the endpoints and map the attack surface. So that's the other case.
That's so interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. I love how you mentioned that developers are very creative. Yeah, of course. And then it takes, obviously it takes a great team of super smart folks like yourselves to stay on top of everything that comes into making sure that code is secure. So that's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. Another amazing component to CodeQL itself, of course, its ecosystem, the fact that the queries are open source. And you touched a little bit about how you started writing your own queries and how you started actually taking a look at the beginning what existed. But I wonder now, since you've been using CodeQL, are you using the community queries at all? And I love it if, Lucia, if you could dig in a little bit on that, that'd be great.
Yeah, sure. So the open source queries are extremely useful, mainly for inspiration and also as examples. So we could understand the pattern that we want to model. Although, because of Mercado Libre private libraries, we weren't able to use them as they come. So we have to model those private libraries. We have a bunch of them. So we have to model them and then extend these open source queries. But we even model quite a different pattern for some queries due to our internal architecture and, as Vale said before, as the way things are done here in Mercado Libre. So also because of the way we're using CodeQL, as Vale said before, in our continuous integration pipeline and blocking pull requests, we needed the queries to be like extremely accurate. So we pay close attention to reducing false positives, modeling a significant number of sanitizers and sanitizer guards. For those in the meeting, sanitizer guards are like and sanitizers, like in simple words, functions that make your code safe. So, and these sanitizers, and also this quite of unique way we model some vulnerable patterns, are the new contributions that we made to the CodeQL open source repository. So 2 server-side request forgery queries are now in the experimental folder for both Go and JavaScript.
Thank you so much. I was going to ask you about that actually next, obviously, because the nature of the queries being open source and the fact that you're now contributing back, why it's so important, to look a little bit beyond consumption and start seeing how you can contribute for, I guess, the greater good of the ecosystem. Joseph, you got any thoughts on that? I know this is something that we talk about a lot internally, about the importance of contributing to open source, how, maybe going beyond finding your solution and seeing how you can help others find their solutions, right?
Of course, open source is all about giving back to the community. And here at GitHub, we have a community of people contributing back to cybersecurity through CodeQL queries. One of these are with us today. And thank you so much again for being with us. But we also have a huge amount of people that love cybersecurity. And of course, they love to give back to us their knowledge through codifying this knowledge in CodeQL. We, of course, love to have more contributions in the future. And at the end of the day, open source is about people contributing together, coming together, and help each other.
You said it. That's the beauty of it. Yes, for sure. So I'm definitely a huge advocate for that. And I know this team is, being as they're contributing back to the ecosystem. So Lucia, you mentioned there are two now queries that are available that you contributed back. Maybe at the end of the show, we can link that in our notes. AJ in the production booth can link that to the notes so that folks who are watching can take a look and then just kind of explore and see what you give them back. And then maybe you can give people ideas on how they can actually start getting their queries ready to, go back into a contribution. So that's awesome. Thank you so much. I feel like we kind of flew to our questions because that's what happens when you have a power team of folks that know what they're doing. You're very efficient. So that's amazing. I'd like to take a moment to ask a question. Well, we'll go back and touch into open source a little bit later, but then I'm going to pass it on to Joseph now. And we have a question for everybody. Joseph, if you wouldn't mind asking. And then maybe after that, we can take a look through the chat and see if there are any questions for either Joseph, myself, or the team. Anything that we can, help the folks who are watching so that they can get started in their journey with CodeQL, or anything that they can learn from this amazing SAST team. So go ahead, Joseph. I love this question. This one coming up is my favorite.
So this question is coming up a lot. We would like to ask what advice, and this question is for all of you, what advice would you give to someone who is looking to start into cybersecurity, to get into cybersecurity, or may already be in a field, but would like to explore contributing to open source?
Yes. And in cybersecurity, as a student, there is a much security content in most of the university, but you need a major in computer science, software engineer, or others related to IT.
Well, if you are a curious developer, I can say you would explore some blogs there in internet and study or search security standards. It's very helpful. And maybe attend conferences. And then also it's very important to join the community and give something back for all of us.
So for me, one of the most important things to consider is to contribute with a solution to a problem that has no solution at the time. For sure, you could code a JSON JSON web token library that is better than any library made before, but it's kind of odd. So if this is your first time contributing to open source, keep it simple. So I guess the most organic way to contribute is, you have a problem, maybe at work or maybe while you're studying, whatever, and there is no solution, at least in the open source community. So there you could build that up and then maybe make a pull request if this is an addition to an existing project. But, and a big but here, if you're considering like creating a new framework or library or whatever, you have to be aware of the responsibilities that come with that project. No security team wants yet another orphan open source library in the wild, so no security upgrades, and I don't know, maybe then a mysterious developer comes to save the day and take care of the orphan library. No, I think that we all know how that ends. So maybe a good way of contributing for the first time is to add some functionality to an existing project. Maybe one you are already using it.
Yeah, I think contributing to open source is a lot about giving back to the community. I wanted to talk about our experience contributing to CodeQL with the server-side requests for free queries. We had our queries that they were running. We knew they worked because we use it here on Mercado Libre. But what I want to tell as advice is it will take time to contribute. You have to adapt that query to the open source repository that may have different quality standards, and they may ask for changes or corrections or whatever. And so that takes time and effort, but I think it's worth it, because in the end you end up with a better query for yourself too. So that it's a great experience, and we hope we can find another query to give back to.
Thank you. This is some of the best advice I've heard lately. Like, I'm taking notes myself. I hope the folks who are joining us are also taking notes. Thank you so much for being so open to sharing candidly advice like this. It's free for you today watching Demo Days Security, but it does not come easy. And I know the four of you are speaking from experience, which is so incredibly valuable. So thank you so much. I agree with Lucas Kundari. We have Lucas on the chat saying, you are impressive professionals, because yes, of course you are. Thank you, thank you. So we have a question from folks who have been taking a look, and I think maybe Valeria, you can help us with this one. And this is a good one. So how do you go about choosing what query to build first?
Okay, yeah, good question. First, you need to have a problem. So usually in a company like Mercado Libre, you have different sources that report vulnerabilities, maybe a bug bounty program, maybe an internal issue tracker, I don't know. But you have to take a lot of metrics, check what's the worst one for you, right, for your context. And you want to choose a vulnerability and a language, because it isn't the same to build a query for JavaScript or Golang or Java or whatever. So both of those. And of course, you want a vulnerability that can be detected with CodeQL. not all of them are suited for that. And you need to know it very well. You need to have lots of examples and know how the vulnerability works and how the fixes work. So it's usually about information. Which query, which vulnerability do you have more information about? And which ones are maybe the most critical for you, or like you have a lot of them, right? I would suggest, I would suggest going for a quick win first, and then adding effort to the others. Yeah, Nadi.
I can add that it's important for the query don't have lots of false positives, because if not, the devs will want to kill us. So it's something important.
Of course, when you're doing your job so well, that there's gonna be, right, you're gonna run the risk of having those false positives. And I'm assuming obviously that comes from experience and understanding the patterns, and then you just get better at it, right? But I can see how folks would get really, a little bit on edge, anything that kind of stops functionality. So that's awesome though. Thank you so much for sharing. I appreciate that advice. I think there is another question about limitations. Joseph, would you mind taking that on? And then if any of you ladies, I think maybe Lucia, would you mind taking that one? Go ahead, Joseph.
So there's a question from Santiago Rodriguez, which is, did you find any limitations in terms of performance given the Mercado Libre scale?
Mm-hmm. Okay, I think I have like different things to answer to that. First of all, I think that the scale of Mercado Libre, and also, as Vali said before, being in the continuous integration pipeline and blocking pull requests, we had to be really careful with the queries we made, because, yeah, we don't want to be blocking like 6,000 of repositories at once. So we have to be very careful about that. About performance, not that much. Right now we are using the LGTM server, and we didn't have much problems with performance. Maybe another problems, but not with performance. And nowadays we're trying the advanced security that it's on GitHub, and we had to figure out some things on that. But what I think the most important thing to say about this question, let me think. Yeah, is also what Valeria said before. Valeria, you said everything that I want to say. Is these things about we have to do a lot of tests and a lot of examples about these queries and all these coding examples. But Mercado Libre is really big, so everything is changing, as in the technology world, of course. But everything is changing, and you have like a million ways to do anything. So sometimes we are behind with validators, with sanitizers, sanitizing guards. Sometimes we are behind even with new libraries that could be synced for our queries. So we got new false negatives that we didn't know before. So I think that it's the most challenging about this big company, Mercado Libre. I don't know if that answered the question, but it's what I thought. Sorry, Vale.
Yeah, I have something to add. Not related to performance, but yeah, to the scale. Since we have so many repositories and so many developers, we get a lot of false positive reports that we have to keep up, and we review them once every 2 weeks, and it's not enough. So we want to keep up with that feedback, but yeah, it's a lot. So maybe that's another scale issue.
Thank you so much. I think that definitely covers the question. So, in big thanks to Santiago Rodriguez for asking the question. I appreciate it. It's a tough one. And then I really appreciate all of you being here today. I mean, I feel like I learned a lot about the process of a team such as yours. I am super impressed. The marketplace is so huge, 132 million folks. So for those of you who are watching and think that maybe, wow, yeah, if I break something, you know, my team is gonna really shout at me or something. I mean, imagine having 132 million users and able to use your platform. So wow. So thank you so much for sharing that. Joseph, I don't know if you have anything to add when it comes about scale. Maybe we can add that, and while we take a look, I think there might be another question coming in.
The scale is impressive. Like Andrea said, 132 million users have an attack surface that is huge. Not so many companies in the world have to process so much data and at the same time have a production that can support real-time cybersecurity at this scale. So a SAST team that is working with state-of-the-art tools like yourselves have to have another challenge as well, which is not just only to keep up with the latest trends of cybersecurity every day, but also to adapt your tooling to match these trends. And as software evolves exponentially and cybersecurity evolves linearly, you have to every day close that gap. So for me, this is very impressive. And I really want to know even more on top of what I've learned today.
100%. So I think we have a question on the chat, and maybe if we can get to the questions, you know, for sure, maybe we can try and touch on the notes after. But Joseph, if you don't mind taking a look and see if maybe that's a question that you wouldn't mind answer. Yeah. In the meanwhile, again, I'm super excited that all of you joined us today. For those of you watching, this fantastic team is on LinkedIn, so find them, add them. I think once we publish this video, we'll add their direct URLs into the notes so that you can learn from them, follow them, because they have definitely a lot to teach us. What do you think, Joseph?
A question in the chat from Ankit. Thanks so much for asking, Ankit. The question is, does CodeQL help identify causes of most common zero-day attacks identified in past and possibilities to removing them before they could happen?
Mm-hmm. Nice.
We want to Okay, I will answer.
Lucia, yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Yeah.
totally, Lucia, go for it. Thank you.
Yeah. So I think that the most important thing to know about CodeQL, you have to know what you're modeling. You have to know the pattern you want to model. So for past 0 days, yeah, for sure. But new vulnerabilities that came across are just not possible because that's the definition of 0 day. So not for new ones, but maybe we have some other two for open source libraries or open source code where we kind of try to respond the most quickly we can to 0 days and 0 days attacks. I don't know if any of the girls want to add up something. No. I don't know if that answered the question. It's what I understood.
It definitely answers the question. And I want to add on top of that, Ankit, that of course, the nature of 0 day vulnerabilities is that they are problems that are seen for the very first time.
Right.
Like our amazing team here said before, they are also looking for variant of those 0 day vulnerabilities, which is something that CodeQL can definitely help with. Like, for example, it can be a new 0 day, something that we haven't found before, but it's very similar to a previous one. And CodeQL can definitely pick this up before becoming a new problem in a range of databases.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you both for adding that. I think that definitely answered the question. Are we done? Is it over? No way. I think we're coming to the end of our time. So Joseph, would you just give us a brief overview of what we learned today? And yeah, thank you. Like, this has been
We've learned so much
unbelievably
today,
helpful.
and we can make a little summary of what we've learned. So today, through this very informative session with the SAST team of Mercado Libre, we learned how they leverage the power of CodeQL towards secure software. For those joining our conversation late, CodeQL has two main goals. First is to explore code towards finding vulnerabilities using queries. And second, to make these queries generic to find variants of vulnerabilities. Using CodeQL, security professionals are able to codify their knowledge in an expressive query language, exactly like Lucia, Valeria, Natalia, and Camila do, to describe what to find and not how to find it. If you are curious to find out more about CodeQL, check the links below. Over to you, Andrea.
Yes, thank you so much. I just want to take another moment to thank each and every one of you, Camila, Natalia, Valeria, Lucia. It's been an absolute pleasure to learn from you today. Thank you so much for everything you do in the open source ecosystem as well, and always looking to see how you can contribute back. That's super inspirational. And then, of course, I have to share the MELI team is amazing. Their engineering team is amazing. And they have a wonderful blog that all of you can access right now. It's free. It's going to be on Medium. And there is a ton of information there beyond security. So you can learn about how they leverage other technologies to run this very, very impressive platform and keeping their users available and ready to, hey, buy or do all the things that they do on the platform. So again, thank you so very much to the MELI team. It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor to have you with us today. Folks who are watching, don't forget to follow them on LinkedIn so you can stay in the loop of their amazing work. And you can also follow Joseph. Joseph, I'll give out your handles at some point. But thank you so much, team. Really, it's been an absolute delight. We appreciate you being here with us today. All right, thank you. Well, I think this is it, AJ. I think we're wrapping it up. So, Joseph, any parting words?
Just want to say a big thank you as well.
Yes.
And to wish to everybody to enjoy this weekend.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you. Thank you, MELI. Thank you, MELI team. Thank you so much. We need to have you again. I love this. So thank you all so much. And thank you, everyone watching at home. We'll see you next time. I want to say the next demo days is going to be next year. What? Maybe not. AJ, correct me if I'm wrong. 2022, here we come. So thanks again, everyone. Thank you for joining. Thank you, Joseph. You're a fabulous co-host.
Thank you too. Bye.